we talk a lot on the show about the importance of entrepreneurship in general for Saudi Arabia and its Vision 2030, but there's clear progress in that. The kingdom's IPO market is heating up. Saudi Arabia is climbing up international entrepreneurship indices. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor report 2020-21 said the kingdom ranks 7th in entrepreneurship, and a whopping 9 out of 10 asked said it was easy to start a business in Saudi Arabia. So what about social entrepreneurship? This sector sits between philanthropy and private enterprise, using commercial methods to address social needs in innovative, financially sustainable ways. I think, Radha, you are pretty much the expert on this, so I'd like to kick it over to you. Some of the questions we'd like to get at today are, does Saudi Arabia now have a budding group of social entrepreneurs looking to bring change? And if so, are these social entrepreneurs and future social entrepreneurs seeing support from the government and others?
Well, thank you, Roshan. Yes, I actually spent about 4 or 5 years researching social entrepreneurship in Saudi, and I've conducted countless interviews, collected data on this, and I've written a piece recently for the Atlantic Council on social entrepreneurship in Saudi. I think I'd like to start by saying first, what is social entrepreneurship? So it has played a big role in solving social and environmental issues that countries face today, and more so during the pandemic. And a social entrepreneur usually develops a business solution or initiative for social and environmental problems. So it's driven by these pragmatic, innovative visionaries and their network. That's an important thing, which I'll go back to later. And it's built on the concept that a business should serve the interest of all society rather than simply the shareholders. And to be honest, if you ask for a clearer definition, then it would be difficult because it depends on the context and on the country. So it's a fluid and contested concept. Simply what happens is a social entrepreneur tackles real issues with business tools. And once profit is made, that profit would be reinvested in similar ways in order to tackle the same problem or a similar one. The most famous example is, and that's an international example, is Muhammad Yunus. He's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and he founded the Grameen Bank and pioneered the concept of a microcredit and microfinance. And the bank gives out loans to entrepreneurs who do not qualify for traditional bank loans, mostly women, and it started in Bangladesh. So I spent 4 years mapping out the social entrepreneurship ecosystem and network in Saudi for my PhD research. Right now, I was looking at the data on this. The most recent one came out from Munshaat, which is the small and medium general authority in Saudi, the small and medium enterprise general authority in Saudi. And we have about 3,000 social enterprises as of 2018, though, as of 2018. So probably there's more now.
And that was an interesting report by Munshaat. And one of the things it said was, in terms of the nascent nature of social entrepreneurship, it was saying that in Canada, for example, there's 50 not-for-profit social organizations for every 10,000 people. In the U.S., there's 200 in France. Again, 200 not-for-profit social organizations per 10,000 people. Currently in Saudi Arabia, there's one not-for-profit social organization per 10,000 people. And as you say, it's a relatively new thing.
It is, but I'll have to be honest, Richard, that I think the numbers you're seeing, this low level of social entrepreneurial activity that may appear in reports, is just because there isn't enough data on this. And a lot of people are social entrepreneurs or have founded social enterprises, and they just don't realize it yet. And I felt that from the interviews that I did. And I think, in the same report for Munshaat, they were saying that they're hoping that by 2030, social enterprises would be able to create at least 250,000 job opportunities for Saudis. So there is potential there.
In what sectors, from your research and your experience, what sectors seem to be the most active?
I would say women empowerment. Or women, let's say, women finding jobs. Yeah, women empowerment, helping them find jobs. So, and a very important example is Glow Work. It was founded by a social entrepreneur who was a Shoka fellow, Khalid al-Khudair, and it is essentially a recruitment agency. And with the blessing and backing of Saudi authorities, Glowwork has helped over 10,000 of women find jobs in fields like design, HR, sales. And at first, Glowwork also encouraged companies to set up arrangements where women can work from home. By 2019, more than 10,000 women have also attended Glowworks workshops. And these workshops, they used to help them and give them tips about how to better market your skills and how to write your resume. So that's the type of support that they provided.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I could very well be, Glowwork was actually established before Vision 2030 in 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around for a little bit. It's the original.
Yes. And this is when I think I should mention the network of social entrepreneurs. So there are different capitals you need when you start a business, right? You've got social capital, human capital, financial capital. But I think in the case of social entrepreneurship in Saudi, the most important was the social capital. And I've identified 5 main actors. The first one is the government, obviously. Munsha'at, let's say. And then we also have the global foundations, such as, the global foundations, that would be Ashoka and Acumen, who have so far sponsored about 7 fellows. Then we have the local foundations like King Khalid Foundation or MISC Foundation. Then we have the private sector, which includes mostly family businesses such as Rajhi, Subai, Jamil. And then finally, you've got the intermediaries. So it's law firms who may want to give pro bono advice to the social entrepreneurs. And if you have access to them, those 5 actors, then you probably can survive in an environment where there might not be policies or regulations supporting the type of business you have.
And it seems sort of like social enterprises could have a very key role in Vision 2030. And I don't know how, but it just seems like they're sort of ideal in that they, just like we talked about, they would provide both economic development and social benefit, a better quality of life. So it seems like the government, if they're not now, will soon be emphasizing this area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very optimistic, especially with the establishment of the NCNP, the National Center for the Nonprofit Sector. And there's certainly a higher level of awareness of the contribution that social enterprises make. And I've been hearing that they've been conducting research into this, meeting with social entrepreneurs, and probably we will hear some more positive announcements soon that you'll need to cover on your podcast.
I think we will.
Well, we did cover the establishment of the nonprofit city. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I know that MISC was involved creating the city, but it is yet unclear to me. I also tried to read about it recently, and it is a little unclear to me whether it would include social enterprises or not. It could be just, about creating a more thriving charity sector.
Talk a little bit about these private initiatives. For example, the Jamil, they've always been very active in this area. You mentioned Al-Raji and
Al-Subai.
Al-Subai?
Yes.
They've been, and they're involved in social entrepreneurship. In what ways?
Mostly funding, I would say. Mostly funding them. Sometimes they don't have very active programs where it says, "Oh, if you're a social entrepreneur, come to us." But it's more like if you have an idea, you'd go to them, and they might be more excited to fund you because they see it's not only about the financial benefits that you will get or they'll get, but also it will support society in a way, hopefully. So there's that, and there have been a lot of recent initiatives, more and more initiatives by the government and by local foundations to support social entrepreneurs in different ways.
And the whole idea of corporate social responsibility, CSR, is something that's taken hold in Saudi Arabia over the last decade. It wasn't a habit, prior to a recent period, and now every corporation has somebody in charge of their CSR, and hopefully this feeds into supporting social entrepreneurship and that sort of thing.
I mean, there are different types of social entrepreneurship. Again, this goes back to the definition. So there's corporate social entrepreneurship. But the idea is when you start that business, the main reason you're doing it is to solve a specific issue or to produce a product you believe will help society. And usually in a business, it's not that. It's about making profit.
So where do the arts fall into this?
Ooh, okay. It's
Great
funny
question.
you mentioned it because what I wanted to do when I started my PhD, I actually worked with a social enterprise here in the UK. And that social enterprise was sort of a sister company to a gallery, and which inspired, my research proposal and the reason I wanted to do a PhD. And I thought, you know what, I would love to do a PhD on social enterprises that support the creative industry in Saudi. But keep in mind that was back in 2014, 2015. And the first finding of my research was that there are no social enterprises supporting the creatives, or at least I failed in finding them. Maybe there were one or two, but I couldn't find any, and I had to then pivot my focus a little bit in my research and look at other types of social enterprises, which was still rewarding to do.
So it's sort of, but it seems to me that there's just, and I'm foreshadowing here because one of our yellow items is about the art scene in Saudi Arabia, and we've done a number of segments on the Biennale, on Hayya Jamil, and on just the extraordinary number of things going on in terms of promoting arts and creativity. Of course, in the Red Sea Film Festival. Is this social entrepreneurship? What is this?
No, I wouldn't say, at least I wouldn't classify it as social entrepreneurship, because it needs to be, it needs to have a specific business model. You need to be making profit. You need to be clear on what's your impact, and then on how you will use that profit again in your business to increase that impact. So I wouldn't call it. They're great, but they wouldn't be classified as social enterprises.
Retta, can we talk a little bit about your time working with Roads of Arabia and the just
Edge
amazing,
of Arabia.
Edge of Arabia, the sort of just that just sounds really interesting, and I think everybody would like to hear about it.
By the way, Roads of Arabia was really cool too, and that was the first time. This was way back.
Like a decade ago, right?
Yeah, at least. Yeah. But this was the first sort of foray into pre-Islamic. Saudi Arabia had sort of shied away from anything, prior to the Prophet in his time, and this was an interesting for that reason. I mean, because there's all sorts of fascinating pre-Islamic historical things in Saudi Arabia. But anyway, I digress, which I'm prone to do. Sorry, Randa.
No, it's all right, Richard. So I worked with Edge of Arabia Gallery. It was an interesting time because the first time I encountered contemporary art from Saudi was for an exhibition they had here in Brick Lane in London. And that was back in 2012. And I saw it and I just had a feeling that I should be involved. I want to know more about this. And so I went to the gallery. It was based in Battersea. And I worked with them for a while, and it showcased, beautiful artwork by emerging young Saudi artists. Not all of them were young, but they were all very passionate, and had, some of them are actually now presenting their work in the Saudi Design Festival and the Diriyah Biennale. So it's amazing to look at their journey, where it was, let's say 10 years ago, they were showing their work only in London, and now they have the opportunity to, show it in Saudi and the heart of Riyadh, which is beautiful. I think I like that idea very much of the artwork going to the US and then traveling all around, because I think, Richard, the notion that seeing is believing. You can hear about contemporary art from Saudi Arabia day and night. You can even see it on your social media. But if you actually see the piece in front of you, meet the artist, it's something completely different. And this is also why I feel like I'd like more and more people to come to Saudi and see it, because you can listen to this amazing podcast, the episodes that you have, but definitely and read about everything, but definitely it's worth a visit and seeing what's happening on the ground.
We've worked for many years with a group called for the Committee for International Trade, which is part of the now Federation of Saudi Chambers. The group, CIT, Committee for International Trade, was established in the 80s. Nonprofit, private sector, men and women, really capable, competent professionals, based on exactly what you're saying. And they would send groups, delegations themselves, and that's just for that reason, because being able to meet people, seeing is believing, because most Americans may hear it, but they don't believe it. So that firsthand ability to engage and interact in a firsthand basis is really, really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think also that links to the goals of the scholarship program that they had. So that was one of the reasons they also encouraged people to apply for it and to spend a period abroad to study and to meet people and introduce them to Saudi and Saudi culture. And I think the results of that program were very successful. As far as
that was a brilliant program, and it's evolving now, and not the same numbers, but it's more directed in terms of what educational needs. But that was an outstanding program, and we sometimes refer to it obviously as an educational initiative. It's a social initiative, but it's also a commercial initiative. I mean, it's a great way to establish ties. I mean, because Saudis who come study are going to have an affinity group that are Americans. They're going to like the same things. They're going to find opportunities to work together, do things together. Just an outstanding initiative.
Exactly. One of I'm going back to social entrepreneurship now, but one of the social entrepreneurs, Shahid, she went on a fellowship, an Acumen fellowship, and then she spent a few months in New York attending that program, and she connected with an American there, and later they established their social enterprise together, which was great. So yeah, a lot of opportunities come from that sort of exchange of knowledge.
Rada, we had Fahad Nasser, who's spokesman for the Saudi embassy, on the program a few weeks ago. And one of the things that he emphasized was how different Saudi Arabia is now than it was a few days ago, a few weeks ago, a few months ago. It's just constantly changing. You travel to Saudi Arabia a lot. Could you sort of talk about that and how you see it through your eyes changing every time you go, and just some kind of cool experiences that you see visiting your home country and seeing it change every time?
Oh, of course. I think there are hundreds of large and small scale projects in the works, and they're happening all over the country. Always, you expect rapid progress, new museums and art spaces, and an exciting international events taking place there. In fact, I feel like I'm missing out if I don't go back there every month. So, yeah, obviously the seasons are a very popular thing. And even the sites that are not fully activated, let's say like Diriyah, there are still some spots that you can go and visit. And domestic tourism, if you travel around Saudi now, it's a completely different experience, especially for women. It's you're more comfortable. You can drive yourself around, and you can there's more acceptance for you to do that. And also for international travelers, I conducted some research on Al-Ula and the entrepreneurial families of Al-Ula. And I went around and I interviewed family members who established their own businesses, and they were welcoming international tourists into their farms, into their homes. And I met this very old grandmother, and she was 80 years old, and she was telling me about how she met two Colombians who came to their home with her son, who was their tour guide, and how she was sharing, the traditional Saudi food with them. Obviously, she wasn't able to communicate with them because she doesn't speak English or a language that was possible for them to use to communicate. But her son did all the translation, and yes, examples like this you find it all around Saudi, and it's great. It's not only about the Saudis also enjoying the country, but making use of the opportunities that they're having, business opportunities that they're having now.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, really, really cool. You've visited Al Ula recently since some of the developments going on there, and
I did, and it was partly, we were going as with a group of friends, but also to conduct research, and it was an amazing experience. We went camping, we went sightseeing, and I absolutely loved it. Definitely recommend going there, and they seem to be having a special new event every month, and it changes. It's completely different every month. And you see beautiful art pieces there, installations, experiences. So yeah, I loved it. And I think I was there last year, but end of 2019, I think. Even during the pandemic, by the way, it was possible to travel around the country, not leave it, but it was possible to travel around. And I think it was a great thing to do. Really enjoyed it.
By the way, Lucian, that's the third thing we need to do. One is, go play Royal Greens. 2 is, get that lucid. And 3 is to take that extended road trip, and go out to the Jeddah area, start there, go see Red Sea development, go see Al Ula, go up the coast, and go all the way up to Neom, and just see all that's going on out there.
I'm down. I'm definitely down for that. Desert X Al Ula is going on right now. So there's also a huge art show happening in Al Ula, which is amazing. But this anchors back to what we were talking about earlier in the show. Just there's all this stuff going on that's changing, and it's a country that's changing and progressing so quickly that there sort of needs to be an effort also to formalize and cement its history and its youth, and these Saudis that are seeing all these changes going on, to sort of say, oh, also, like, we have our own traditions here. We have cool contemporary artists coming in from Italy, but we also have our own artists. We have our own industries going on here. So it's really cool to see what's going on. And that was a really cool story.
That's actually one of the neat things about the Red Sea Film Festival, the Art Biennale in Riyadh, or what's going on in Jeddah, is there are so many Saudi and regional creatives involved in this, and they're really building up a culture, and that culture has existed. These artists have been there. They're being enabled now